Welcome to the Paradigm Shift on 4ZZZ 102.1, where we challenge the assumptions of our current society to resist oppression and investigate alternative ways of living, for a world based on justice, solidarity and sustainability. Welcome to the Paradigm Shift on 4ZZZ 102.1 FM. It is your local community radio station. My name's Andy and I'll be with you for the next hour, broadcasting on Jagera and Turrbal country. And today on the show we are going to be talking about West Papua, that island just to our north, which, well, half of it gained its independence from Australia in 1975. The other half of it is still fighting for its self-determination after first being colonised by the Dutch and then the Indonesian takeover in the early 1960s. And today there is going to be actions all around the world in 7 countries, 25 different locations, including our own fair city of Magunjin, Brisbane, where there is a strike for West Papua going on, organised by some young students keen to show their solidarity. As Australians should be. Papuans are our neighbours, and it's been a long struggle against an occupation that at times is very brutal. We very rarely hear about the deaths and the repression that goes on in West Papua, but it is quite a constant thing. And last week we talked about Kanaki, another independence struggle in our region, and, well, Australia, we like to think of ourselves as this kind of big power in the Pacific, but what does it mean when people are being oppressed in the region where we're the most powerful country? And this week, it's been notable that Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has been at the Pacific Islands Forum trying to negotiate for basically military power in the region. And at the same time, Richard Marles, the Defence Minister, has been entertaining Prabowo Subianto, the alleged war criminal and president of Indonesia. Again, it's all about defence treaties, weapons, military power. But what about the people that live in our region? Their main concerns are climate change and freedom from colonial powers. And those things are not things Australia is interested in doing. At least at the government level, Australian people today are going to show that they do care about West Papuan people by getting out in solidarity in different cities around this country. And today on the show, we'll be talking with Ronny Kareni, who is a West Papuan activist based in Canberra. And we'll get an update on what's happening in West Papua with the struggle and what's happening around the world today. And then I spoke to Crystal Coleman, she is of Papua New Guinean descent, but she has been helping to organise a strike for West Papua happening at Queen's Park today here in Magunjin, Brisbane. And we'll talk about what inspired that, and about solidarity across the arbitrary line drawn down the middle of that Papuan island, but between the Papua New Guinean people on one side and West Papuans on the other side. And it's so great to see people in Brisbane getting out, being active, and supporting human rights in our region. So do stick around, and let's start off with having a listen to Ronny Kareni.
My name is Ronny Kareni, a Canberra-based West Papuan activist, musician, and also a community youth worker.
And today is a big day for West Papuan activism, both here in Brisbane and where you are in Canberra, but also around the world. Can you tell us a bit about what's going on today and a bit of background about the West Papuan independence struggle?
Yeah, today marks what we call 830 for West Papua, meaning August 30th for West Papua Action, and it's a global coordinated event, which it was inspired by the school strike for climate way back early in the year when a couple of the organizers were wanting to organize a strike for West Papua in Mianjin, and things transpired quickly. After a post that was on the social media page on Instagram, it was immediately banned and censored and could not be retrieved. And so immediately word spreads to friends and circle of friends, and then an idea of organizing a coordinated event down the track, which is on the 30th of August. And that's the kind of like the background of the 834 West Papua. What has really transpired from that is students, but it's kind of like led into community members and activists throughout. So far we've reached at least 25 locations that this action is happening, and over 7 countries. And here in so-called Australia, pretty much most of the towns have already kind of like planned or organized something for today. Aotearoa, New Zealand, in UA, and then what is of really amazing is in West Papua alone, 2 towns, one in Sorong, there's going to be a massive get-together and a march to a big concert. In Jayapura, there is going to be a long march. One today, they're commemorating it more in relation to the visit of the Catholic Pope. In Jakarta particularly, as we speak today, they are planning to visit the office of the UN, given that the UN Secretary General is visiting the 25th years of the referendum since then. So there is a message that they are calling out as well to his visit to Delhi. And basically this 830, the key demands is calling on to the end for ecocide and genocide in West Papua, given with extractive industries, logging, particularly with Mebao logging and palm oil plantations, and food security, which are businesses operated by oligarchs, military elites, their black markets, and this is something that we're calling for that end, given the loss of natural habitat, loss of the community everyday living, and doing their gardening, and also the displacement to give way for extractive industries. So we are seeing an increase in there. So that's one of the demands. The other demand is calling on the complicity and accountability, in particular for Indonesian government, for their accountability on some of the human rights cases. In principles, they've verbally said that they would allow an observing or a UN fact-finding mission or an independent observation into the region, but until now there hasn't been since then. So it's kind of like calling them on that as well, a demand. The third part calling as well is more around weapons companies, governments that are complicit and continues to trade, export weapons to, and also train Indonesian security forces, which is combined the police and military. And that has been happening even last Tuesday here in Canberra. The President-elect Prabowo came and signed a security pact with Richard Marles, the defense minister. What has not been come to the public knowledge is that Prabowo is pretty much signing off a deal that Indonesia could purchase weapons from Australia. Some of the latest, the technology weapons, the surveillance weapons, which in parts of West Papua where it's very remote and not easy to travel into those rugged mountains and valleys, some of the latest sophisticated technologies could help with the military or security surveillance and those drones. So that is really concerning that they haven't really outlined publicly of that. So we are calling on that in our key demands. And of course the fourth one is the right to self-determination and the support, and looking at it more from an angle of indigenous sovereignty and why it's of importance of First Nations, indigenous peoples struggles to come together and join force and really support each other in the struggle, and of course with the struggle of West Papua's national liberation.
Yes, you mentioned Prabowo Subianto there, and he was elected as president last year. A bit of a controversial one because of his history as general of the army under his father-in-law, the dictator Suharto. How have things gone for West Papua since Prabowo has been in power?
Well, what is interesting in the national scale of Indonesia politics is that he's been contesting for presidency. This is the third time lucky that he got in. But this time round, he joined force with Jokowi's son, Gibran. Now, this comes just after the second election, presidential election, where Jokowi won again the second term in office. And Prabowo knew that he will not win the third presidential election. So he created a bit of a chaos in the first 3 months in Jakarta. And this comes in the mid 2019, June, July, August, because May was the election and the announcement. And one of the main issues that was also creating the chaos was Prabowo using his militia group, so they call Ormas. Ormas are like the thugs. Back in the day, it's a reference to like people that are outlawed, basically groups, gangs. And so this Ormas, he put some funds behind to really get them to just go out there and create chaos in the streets. And one of those chaos that took place as well by the Ormas is the targeting of Papuan students in Surabaya in the lead up to the Indonesia National Day on August 17. And so they use Papuan students as an issue of pulling down the red and white flag and dump it in the drain, and then that's it. They were attacked in the student dormitory, which sparks the anti-racism protest in West Papua for 2 weeks, and then the internet shut down, everything. This is all, the mastermind was Prabowo. And then immediately, also in their top chalons, like top offices, there was corruption cases against the Human Rights Commission. There was also corruption cases against the police commission. And there was this massive chaos for at least 6 to 9 months in Indonesia. And that chaos is basically a message to Jokowi that Prabowo wants a position in the government, which he won at the end. Jokowi have to compromise, and Prabowo became or appointed as the defense minister. And there was this major party coalition government. So that second period, with the beginning of that administration until the last election in early this year in February, Prabowo was setting himself up to be the next president of Indonesia. And how he do that is by shifting, turning, and forming alliances. But one of the interesting thing in Indonesian history is that he was able, through Jokowi as the president, but he's the mastermind again, creating this massive chaos, to change Indonesia's constitution to lower the age limit down so that it could cater for Jokowi's son to be the vice president of Indonesia. And this is a massive scandal, political scandal in Indonesia's history. And in these weeks as leading up as well, as we speak, 2 weeks or last week, they still continuing to twist the constitution to lower it further down so that Jokowi's second son, who is 29, going 30, so they're dropping it down to as low as 30, can be able to run for president. And so there is this political dynasty that also Jokowi took the advantage of. But at the same time, the winner here is Prabowo. So what that translates to West Papua, for him taking the office in October, is that he will bring that iron fist approach like Suharto era back to his government. At the moment, this is a transitional period, forming of the new cabinet. And words have come out that Prabowo know that he has done a lot of damage in the Indonesian parliamentary system and also chaos that has created. He is scared of someone will make a move to push him out of his office, like the attack in the first president Sukarno. And so he is placing all his former retired generals or people who he trusted most, conservative, in positions of power. So at the moment, this transitional period is very interesting. Everyone wants to be friends with Prabowo. But because in the past 2 years, they have changed a lot of the laws, whether it was a moratorium to give indigenous voices more rights, to decide what companies to come and run their businesses. At the end of the day, it's only on paper. It's the military, security forces, oligarchs that concessions are given for them to carry out palm oil, logging, any form of industries that they wanted to operate. And that's in the case of West Papua, where over a year ago, 2 human rights lawyers tried to highlight this one of particular case of the opening up a new gold mine next to the Freeport McMoran called Wabu Block. And it was one of the former general, Luhut Panjaitan, who was also in a position as a portfolio of Minister for Investment and Maritime. But he uses that to open up that mining. So this is very chaotic in Indonesian politics at the moment. And what that means for West Papua is that there is no chance of them giving a voice or an oxygen for Papua to resist against any policies or whatever that Indonesia or Jakarta is pushing through. And Jokowi is making sure that he'll continues increasing his private businesses in West Papua. And there are 2 major ones that he successfully won. Is the arms weapons that which he signed with Richard Marles, Defense Minister of Australia, and then he went to Papua New Guinea, and it's more in terms of the trade and agriculture, but it's his own business there. So it's more about Prabowo and it's not about the national interest of the country. So that means that in the next 5 years, things will be very, very concerning when it comes to human rights, when it comes to environmental protection of land, or when it comes to, we see increased militarization in Indonesia, showing Indonesia wants to show that they're also another power emerging in the Southeast Asia with the South China Sea, and Prabowo is coming from that background of military. He also wants to demonstrate that true military power.
Now, we don't often hear about the West Papuan independence struggle in the media here in Australia, but I think it is worth mentioning that there have been a couple of recent high-profile incidents involving pilots from New Zealand. One that about 18 months ago was taken hostage by West Papuan guerrilla fighters, and more recently there's been a New Zealand pilot killed in Papua. Do you want to talk about these and how they fit into the broader story of West Papuan independence struggle?
Firstly, the National Liberation Army are the defenders of the land, and they are the freedom fighters. And whatever the tactic they've carried out in defending the land and against the Indonesian military operations, it's been going on since the brutal occupation of Indonesia on the 19th of December 1961. And that has been kind of like, if it's under the international law, it's the war of liberation. And that is purely for the national liberation of West Papua. And yes, there has been over the past cases of hostage taking. 97 was one of the massive case of the hostage taking of some scientists. And then there was the rescue mission that gone really bad, which is under Prabowo's command. And there was a whole village wiped out, which is a Mapenduma case. And then fast forwarding to last February, when the pilot, Martens, flew in that commercial airline into the region. This happens when 2 years prior, in 2018 to 2019, the Liberation Army have already sent out clear message that do not enter the territory or the region where there is war. Do not enter those areas. If civilians enter that, you are aiding the military, or military of Indonesia is using you as a scapegoat to come in. And because the trauma of the Mapenduma case, where they used the Red Cross flag with an helicopter to enter there and kill all the people in the village. The case of Wamena bloodshed as well. So the military tactic in West Papua, in those remote areas, because it's out of sight, no one can be able to see. Whatever they can carry out, they are brutal. And so for the Liberation Army, there is no compromise when warnings have been going out for the 2 years prior. And unfortunately, this civilian plane came in, and it was a reinforcement, basically dropping more military and also supplying food. And that's the argument from the Liberation Army. And so they decided to shoot the plane and took the pilot hostage, but also doing it in such a way that they made it clear they will look after the pilot, his health, his safety. And it's been over a year now, and his demands have not been met by other parties, which he called on the New Zealand government to mediate a process where there is a safe release, or secure way of releasing him, and then also comes to the table to talk about West Papua's aspirations. And that hasn't been the case. Indonesia has intervened and felt that no, they can anything happens have to be through Jakarta, which is fine, but it's just that the lack of leadership and the lack of taking on the responsibility from the other parties. And so he's been still held there as a hostage. But they've allowed communication that he can communicate with his family and for medical access and all this, which is on all parties. I've agreed for that to still continue until the demands are met by other parties, which the Liberation Army have called. Now, there was another latest incident with the shooting of another helicopter landing near the Freeport Timika area. And that is a different case. And this is something that deserves an independent investigation. So far, I've read through the regional media outlets. The narrative has been so biased. It has been mostly coming from the Indonesian press releases, and many have just copy and paste those statements, which the allegations is that it was carried out by the Liberation Army. But the Liberation Army have made a couple of statements and videos that they were nowhere near this particular village or area that this helicopter landed. And so far, they just realized that it's a propaganda that because of the remoteness, the state security forces can do anything. First, the narrative that came out is that the helicopter was bent and the pilot was still inside the helicopter and bent down as the flames goes up. But then there was some images coming out that the helicopter wasn't bent, and the pilot was stabbed and just sit on his chair and then looks like, he's not moving at all. So it's very confusing and contradictory statements that coming out from the police reports. And so it really requires that independent investigation. And so up until now, no one is confirming or denying or hold accountable of the death of the New Zealand pilot. And what is interesting is that after doing some digging a bit, he is employed by this technology company. It's a surveillance technology company. So what he is also aiding, it's the surveillance, basically like drones, where they just going around doing surveillance around a nearby area if there's going to be attacks or anything. So there's also a question of what was he doing at the time and what went wrong in that incident. So at the stage, it deserves an independent investigation of that death of that second of the New Zealand pilot.
Well, Ronny, it's a big day for the Papuan independence movement today, as we've said. If people are interested in finding out more or in getting involved in Papuan solidarity, how can they best do that?
People can definitely first today check out in your cities. Check on the social media. Most of the cities there'll be actions. Check out on the 830 West Papua social media handle on Instagram, Facebook, X or Twitter. There's going to be a lot more information for that. If you want to join in the solidarity movement, please send those messages directly to 830. There's Free West Papua campaign pages as well. Send that and just mention your name, your location, and you want to join the local groups. The liberation struggle for West Papua has been silenced for too long. 62 years of national liberation, and it would be one of the last frontier as well in the Pacific that this unfinished decolonization. So it's of very importance to really stand up and fight together with the people of West Papua, whether it's through the media or whether it's through creative arts or whether it's through journalism or organizing community events. We need everyone to really support this cause. And check out those social media pages and join force in one of your near city. And thank you as well, Andy, for the opportunity to be able to share the stories and the amazing work that you're doing over the years as well, with West Papua and also the peace movement around in the region as well. Big love, respect.
Thank you, Ronny, for chatting with us today.
Thank you.
On the Paradigm Shift on 4ZZZ, we were talking to Ronny Kareni, showing some solidarity with that Papuan cause. Today will be a bunch of people in Queen's Park for a strike for West Papua. It was organised by a group of young people, and one of them, Crystal Coleman, I spoke to about why they're getting together to do this action and about the importance of Papuan solidarity for her as a Papua New Guinean young woman. Let's have a listen to Crystal.
Hi, my name's Crystal. I'm a PNG activist for West Papua. I believe that Papua is often separate when really it's the same country, and I want to kind of remind people that Papua is Papua, and it's one people, one nation, one island.
Yeah, it is a thing, I guess. Many Australians don't know very much about the island to our north, even though it's very close. And so when they hear people mention West Papua, they might think about Papua New Guinea. But I guess, yeah, like you say, there's a lot of similarities between the two halves of the island. What are the things that that separate those two halves?
Yeah, well, really the only thing that separates is the who colonized who, really. So it's split down the middle, where you have West Papua, where it was colonized by first the Dutch, who also colonized Indonesia. So when the Dutch left Indonesia, the Indonesian government also wanted to have control of Papua. And through like a botched voting system called the Act of Free Choice, it was called, but it's really the Act of No Choice. They bribed and threatened a bunch of village people. It was just over 1,000 village people to decide whether West Papua should belong to Indonesia or if it has its right to self-determination.
For you, growing up as with parents from Papua New Guinea, were you taught about West Papua, taught that these people were like your cousins, Wontok, or what? How do PNG people relate to West Papuans?
I think that it was quite the opposite. At least with my parenting, we were told kind of that it was its own struggle. And I think a lot of PNG people feel that because there's an inherent sense of fear, and maybe they think they can protect themselves from that colonization and that fear. But I think that it's time for PNG people to wake up and realize that we are the same people. One talk. We are the same. And they can't do this fight alone and without support of Australians and PNG people.
Moving now a bit further south to Magunjin, Brisbane. You're living here now and you've become part of a group called Papua Merdeka Magunjin. And today you'll be organising a strike for West Papua. Can you tell us what brought about that strike?
So it started off as a climate strike because one of the many things that Australia is helping contribute to is ecocide in West Papua, with deforestation and taking Merbo wood that's sold in Bunnings and even in Queen Street. So gathering together on this strike is saying that the Australian citizens and the Australian population do not support this action of ecocide and genocide. And we stand with West Papuans in solidarity to wish for a free and fight for a free West Papua.
And so what kind of things can we expect at the strike for West Papua?
So our demands for the strike would be to stop ecocide and cease all resourcing to the Indonesian military, hold Indonesia accountable for human rights violations, and support West Papua's right to self-determination. We'll be having speakers from Palestine, as well as West Papua and PNG, to really show, as well as our First Nations brothers, to really show that solidarity.
There is a group, Papua Merdeka Magunjin. Is there going to be ongoing stuff happening in this city to support West Papua?
Yeah, so we're hoping to have something happening at least every month and raising money for, right now it's Panjak Jaya. They went through a military assault because of protesting against the deaths of 3 civilians by the Indonesian military. So we'll be having a stall there to fundraise for Panjak Jaya.
All right, and if people are interested in finding out more or getting involved, how can they do that?
They can do that by going onto Facebook or Instagram and looking up Papua Merdeka Magunjin.
All right, thanks very much, Crystal.
Thank you so much.
You are on 4ZZZ 102.1 FM, and it is the place to hear voices like Crystal, who we just heard, local people who are organising an event because they believe it's the right thing to do, and they're putting it on and trying to get people together and build a better world together. And also you'll hear voices of West Papuan people like Ronny Kareni, who we spoke to earlier, but like so many whose voices are so marginalised by a repressive Indonesian occupation, and also by an apathetic rest of the world that sees West Papua as a place to extract gold from the Freeport McMoran mine or timber from their forests, but not as a place where the Indigenous people should have a say over their own lives and their own political system. In fact, for a number of big companies, the way that they can make money out of West Papua is by providing the means for Indonesia's military occupation, selling weapons to Indonesia. It's a huge military, and there's a lot of companies that make a lot of money. And of course, West Papuans are the unseen part of the unseen cost of those business deals. But it is worth remembering too, and the Land Forces Weapons Arms Industry Conference is coming up in Melbourne, and West Papuan people there will be there as well to remind those companies of where their profits come from. And if you can't make it down to the strike for West Papua, which is happening very shortly in the city at Queen's Park, then stay tuned for more West Papuan events and more coverage here on The Paradigm Shift. Papua Merdeka. I'll see you next week.